All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tracing what I like to call the fascinating funnel of human modernity. We're going to look at the massive, sweeping historical forces that quite literally shaped our contemporary world. From ancient global trade routes to revolutionary technologies, right up to the birth of modern nations. It's just this incredible, interconnected story of identity and really the universal human quest for sovereignty.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The ancient global network. 2. Print culture changes everything. 3. Forging European national identities. And finally, 4. India's path to freedom.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the ancient global network, before the internet.
It's so easy to think of globalization as this super modern thing, right? But the famous Silk Routes, they were the original information superhighway. These ancient roads linking China to the West carried way more than just luxury fabrics. They traded beautiful pottery, sure, but they also exchanged vital, everyday foods. Even the ancestors of your favorite spaghetti traveled these routes. But most importantly, these physical roads spread massive, world-altering ideas and religions, particularly Buddhism.
Now, nothing illustrates the double-edged sword of global trade quite like the humble potato. On one hand, it was an absolute nutritional revolution. When it was introduced, Europe's poor actually began to eat better and live significantly longer. But there's a flip side. Over-reliance creates immense vulnerability. In Ireland, when the potato crop failed, it caused a massive, devastating famine. So connectivity brings life-saving resources, for sure, but it also introduces catastrophic risks.
And speaking of risks, physical connectivity also weaponized biology. When Europeans set out to conquer the Americas, their most devastating tool wasn't their guns. It was an invisible weapon, smallpox. Because Native Americans had absolutely zero immunity to this foreign disease, it wiped out millions of people. It's a pretty stark reminder of how the earliest global connections literally reshaped the demographics of entire continents almost overnight.
Moving right along to Section 2, print culture and the spread of ideas.
Consider this progression. It's a direct line of innovation that completely altered human history. It actually started in China with the invention of woodblocks, the true origin of printing. That eventually evolves into Gutenberg's mechanical printing press in Germany, which meant mass production. And what happens when you mass-produce books? Ideas spread like wildfire. Martin Luther wrote his 95 Theses challenging the church. And thanks to this new press, his ideas spread so incredibly fast that it sparked the massive religious shift known as the Protestant Reformation. Books literally changed how people understood their world.
It's also super fascinating to track print's evolution in India. It kicks off when Portuguese missionaries brought the first printing press to Goa, sparking a regional print culture. Later, reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy essentially weaponized these newspapers to fight horrific social evils like sati. But, as we know, information is power. And the British government, feeling threatened by all this, passed the Vernacular Press Act in 1878 specifically to stop Indian newspapers from criticizing the government. Just pure, strict censorship to silence their critics.
That brings us to Section 3, Forging European National Identities and the Rise of Nationalism. So, before actual borders were redrawn across Europe, the whole concept of a nation had to imagine first. In 1848, the artist Frederick Souriau created this incredibly famous utopian vision of people from all nations, completely regardless of their kings or empires, marching together in a long line toward the Statue of Liberty. It perfectly captured the changing vibe of the era, this powerful, unified march toward freedom, leaving the old absolute monarchies in the dust.
Let's rewind just slightly to 1804. Napoleon introduces the Civil Code, often called the Napoleonic Code. Now, this was a massive game changer because it swept away privileges based solely on birth and firmly protected property rights. It really laid the legal groundwork for modern societal structures.
And remember, liberalism was the ultimate catalyst for the emerging middle class back then. They didn't just want a simple change in leadership, they were demanding individual freedom and, crucially, equality before the law. They basically wanted an end to a system where the rules applied differently just depending on who your parents were. This desire became the absolute beating heart of European nationalism.
Looking at how these nations actually formed, we see very distinct methods. Germany was built by Otto von Bismarck through a highly calculated, forceful strategy of blood and iron. Italy, on the other hand, was brought together by a trio. Mazzini provided the soul, Cavour the brain, and Garibaldi the sword. And then you have the Balkans. This was the most tense area in Europe, just filled with overlapping national desires that eventually became the powder keg that sparked World War I.
Which leads us directly into Section 4, India's path to freedom.
While Europe's nation-building was heavily marked by blood and iron, this universal quest for sovereignty took a remarkably different shape in India. Mahatma Gandhi introduced the philosophy of satyagraha when he returned from South Africa in 1915. This was a non-violent method of mass agitation. It positioned the pure concept of truth as a devastatingly effective, ultimate weapon against oppression. It was just a complete paradigm shift in how resistance could actually operate.
And tensions escalated really rapidly. After Gandhi's return in 1915, outrage exploded in 1919 over the Rowlatt Act, this black law that allowed the British to jail Indians without a trial. That injustice led directly to the horrific Jallianwala Bagh massacre. The struggle just intensified from there. By 1921, the non-cooperation movement began, which eventually evolved by 1930 into full-blown civil disobedience with the iconic Salt March.
Listen to this idea. If we don't cooperate, British rule will collapse in a year. That captures the absolute core of the 1921 non-cooperation movement. Gandhi was asking Indians to simply stop working for the British. It's this profound realization that empires only function when the oppressed actually agree to participate in their own subjugation. If the people simply withdraw their cooperation, the entire machinery of the empire just grinds to a halt. Think about this number. 240. That is the staggering number of miles Gandhi walked during the Dandi March in 1930. He walked 240 miles to the sea just to make his own salt. Why? Because the British held a strict monopoly on salt production. By simply boiling seawater to make salt, Gandhi was breaking the law in a highly visible, deeply symbolic way. He brilliantly shattered the British economic and legal monopoly without firing a single shot.
And just as print connected Europe and helped people envision a nation, unifying visual symbols did the exact same thing in India. The evocative image of Bharat Mata, or Mother India, along with the adoption of the tricolor flag, helped incredibly diverse populations across the subcontinent feel that they belonged to a single, shared, sovereign nation. It gave them a crucial visual anchor for their identity and their struggle.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've seen how the Silk Routes carried ideas across continents and how the printing press literally armed the masses with information to forge modern nations. If those physical ancient roads and mechanical presses sparked the modern world, how is our hyper-connected digital internet mirroring those ancient catalysts today? What massive global shifts are being forged right now? It's a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.